Alien girl mistakes human's bow for submission, but human sees her tribe bow back to him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The storm rolled across the valley like a living thing, flickering bands of violet electricity crawling along the ridge as Ethan Cole tightened the straps of his survey pack. The air smelled of charged metal and bitter dust, the kind that clung to the back of the throat and warned any sane traveler to turn around. He didn't. Somewhere in that storm sat the emergency beacon he'd come to retrieve, its signal fading by the minute. His boots scuffed over cracked stone as the wind pushed against him, steady and cold. When the glow of spear points appeared through the haze, he froze. Figures emerged, tall, lean silhouettes wrapped in woven armor, skin shimmering a cool blue under the stormlight. The Valir. He'd heard rumors of them, a private people, fiercely proud, not fond of outsiders. One stepped forward, her stance controlled, every movement sharp as drawn glass. Her name, he'd learn later, was Nareen. For now, she simply stared at him, chin lifted, eyes narrowing as if measuring his worth in a single breath. Ethan raised both hands slowly, palms out, before giving a slight bow, an instinctive gesture, polite, the way his dad taught him when entering someone else's space. But the reaction snapped through the warriors like a spark. A low murmur. A few exchanged looks that bordered on amused disbelief. Nareen's brows knit together, her voice calm but edged. Human, you kneel so quickly? Ethan blinked. Ma'am, I'm not kneeling. I'm just showing respect. I didn't mean. A gust of wind drowned the rest as the storm howled against the valley walls. His hair whipped across his forehead. He kept his posture steady, hoping his stillness would soften whatever offense he'd caused. Nareen circled once, studying him the way a scientist might examine a strange device. You offer your submission freely, she concluded. Unusual, but accepted. Ethan opened his mouth, then shut it. This was not the time to debate cultural misunderstandings. He just needed safe passage. I'm just here for an emergency beacon, he said, voice low but earnest. If I can retrieve it, I'll be out of your way within the hour. The storm pulsed again, illuminating the worry flickering in her gaze. She didn't fully believe him, but something in his calm unsettled her certainty. Before she could respond, a loose arc of violet electricity cracked across a nearby rock shelf, showering sparks. Instinctively, Ethan stepped back, shielding his eyes, his posture still respectful but never cowering. That moment, quiet, simple, made Nareen hesitate. Submission didn't usually come with steady hands and level breathing. She gestured for him to follow, her tone clipped. You will come to the camp. The elders will decide your purpose. And so Ethan walked behind her through the storm, not as a captive, but not as an equal either. A stranger carrying nothing but a fading signal, a stubborn calm, and a bow that meant one thing to him, and an entirely different world to those who watched him disappear into the violet haze. The Valir camp emerged through the thinning storm like a cluster of glowing stones, each shelter pulsing with soft blue light that shimmered against the drifting haze. Ethan kept his steps steady, feeling the faint charge of the storm buzzing across his jacket as Nareen led him past rows of curious eyes. The camp was quiet, almost reverent, with wind chimes made of carved crystal humming gently in the shifting air. He noticed how the Valir moved with precision, their motions graceful, almost ceremonial. They glanced at him, then at Nareen, their expressions carrying an unspoken question. She ignored them. She guided him toward a circular structure at the center of camp, its walls made of smooth stone that reflected the dim violet sky. As they approached, Ethan felt the weight of the moment settle across his shoulders. He reminded himself to breathe evenly, just as he had during countless survey missions back on Earth. Calm was the only tool he carried into this world. Inside, the air warmed. Faint patterns glowed across the floor, swirling with soft blue luminescence. A handful of elders sat around the circle, their robes layered with woven silver threads. One of them, older than the others with skin, faded like sea glass, looked up at Ethan as though observing a rare weather pattern. Noreen spoke first, her voice steady but colored with something he could not quite name. He bowed to me at the ridge. Freely. Ethan resisted the urge to correct her again. The elder leaned forward, studying him without blinking. Human, why did you lower your head? Ethan cleared his throat gently, mindful of their solemnity. Where I come from, it is a sign of respect. A way of saying I mean no harm. The elder's expression shifted, just slightly. And yet, she murmured, you walked into the storm alone. A storm that even our scout avoided today. Ethan felt the warmth of the room press closer. There was a beacon out there. An emergency signal. If someone triggered it, they might need help. I could not ignore it. The elder exchanged a quiet look with the others, and Ethan sensed their surprise. Noreen watched him closely, her posture rigid, as if trying to reconcile his calm words with the idea of submission she had believed earlier. At last, the elder nodded. Your purpose is simple. That is unusual. Another spoke, soft but firm. You may stay until the storm fully passes. Ethan exhaled slowly. Permission, not quite trust, but not captivity either. As they stepped outside again, the wind had softened to a low hum around the camp's luminous structures. Noreen walked beside him, her gaze fixed forward. After a long silence, she asked, You risked the storm for someone you have not met? Ethan nodded. If a signal goes out, someone is counting on you. That is reason enough. She slowed, her expression unreadable, the faint glow of the camp lights reflecting across her eyes. Among my people, no one steps into danger unless bound by oath. Ethan offered a faint, tired smile. Maybe my oath is just being human. She studied him again, no longer with amusement or skepticism, but with a quiet curiosity that flickered like a new spark. For the first time since their meeting, the storm above them eased into silence, as if listening. The storm finally faded by morning, leaving the valley washed in a pale blue haze. Soft crystals embedded in the Valier shelters hummed with renewed energy, casting gentle patterns across the ground as Ethan stepped outside. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of mineral dust, and something floral he could not name. He rubbed the stiffness from his shoulders, feeling every hour he had spent trudging through the storm, but the quiet of the camp eased some of the tension. He noticed Noreen near a set of tall, arching stones, her posture straight as she checked the readings on a hovering instrument that resembled a spinning ring of light. She looked up when she sensed him approaching. Her expression was controlled as always, but not cold. You rest lightly, she observed. Ethan offered a small smile. Hard to relax when you are the unexpected guest in someone else's home. Noreen's eyes flicked toward the shelters where several Valier watched him with open curiosity. They have never hosted a human before, she said softly. Your presence is unusual. Ethan followed her gaze, noticing how the Valier kept their distance, not out of fear, but out of uncertainty. I will try not to disrupt anything, he replied. I will be out of your way as soon as I retrieve the beacon. Noreen tilted her head, the blue of her skin brightening slightly in the morning light. The valley is calmer now. We can search. The word we settled between them with surprising warmth. They moved through the camp together, passing woven banners that shifted gently in the breeze and stone carvings etched with symbols that glowed faintly. Ethan felt eyes following them, but the attention carried less judgment now and more curiosity, as though the camp sensed something had shifted. At the edge of the camp, the valley stretched out with scattered rock shelves and narrow channels carved by old lightning storms. The ground still held a soft, static charge that tingled through Ethan's boots. Noreen walked ahead, her steps silent. Your beacon, she said. What does it look like? Ethan described the compact cylinder, its orange indicator and small antenna. She listened carefully, nodding once before scanning the terrain. A human device should give off a trace, she murmured. We will find it. He admired how focused she was, how her movements were precise without seeming rigid. She paused occasionally to observe him, as though trying to understand how someone with no oath, no tribal bond, and no apparent protection could walk into danger so calmly. After several minutes of searching, Noreen stopped at a narrow ridge where sunlight bounced off a metallic glint half buried in dust. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. He hurried forward, brushing the dirt aside. This is it, he said. Relief washed over him as the small orange indicator flickered weakly. Someone had triggered it. Someone had needed help. Noreen crouched beside him, her gaze thoughtful. You crossed the valley for this, she said quietly. For someone you did not know. Ethan nodded. If you hear a call, you answer it. She studied him, the breeze lifting strands of her pale hair. Among the Valir, she said, we bow only to those who carry a purpose greater than themselves. Ethan looked up, unsure what to say, but the moment held steady between them. The ridge was silent, the wind gentle, as though the valley waited to see what would come next. The beacon's weak pulse faded into silence as Ethan secured it to his pack, but the quiet between him and Noreen lingered with its own kind of charge. The morning light settled across the ridge, soft and pale, catching in the fine dust that floated around them. Ethan glanced toward the distant cliffs, calculating how long it would take him to return to his rover if the paths had cleared. Noreen watched him with a contemplative stillness. You intend to leave as soon as the valley is safe, she said, not accusing but simply observing. Ethan nodded. If someone activated this, I need to report it. There might be a rescue needed somewhere. Noreen stepped closer, her gaze steady. You answer every call? He hesitated. I try. She seemed to weigh that answer carefully, as though it revealed something she had not yet understood. A soft breeze moved around them, carrying the faint chiming of crystals from the camp. Come, she said at last. There is something you must see before you go. They walked along a slender path carved into the stone, a route worn smooth by generations of Valir feet. The valley stretched below them in wide arcs of silver rock. As they climbed higher, Ethan noticed markers etched with glowing lines, each one vibrant and shifting like ink suspended in water. Noreen stopped beside one. These are storm echoes, she said. They record the movement of our valley. They tell us when a place is safe and when it is not. Ethan traced one of the patterns with his eyes, noticing how the lines formed a gentle spiral before, breaking off into smaller trails. You mapped the storm, he said quietly. We listen to it, Noreen corrected. The valley chooses whom it lets pass. Ethan smiled faintly. It let me pass. Noreen held his gaze for a moment. Perhaps not the valley alone. They continued up the ridge until the path widened into a small plateau. At its center stood a ring of smooth stones, each one glowing with a faint blue core. Noreen stepped into the circle, motioning for Ethan to follow. This is where we honor those who act beyond themselves, she said. Not by order, not by oath, but by choice. Ethan felt his breath slow as he looked around the stone ring. The air here felt different, calmer, as though the storm itself paused at the edge of the plateau. Why bring me here, he asked. Noreen studied him, her expression softened by the quiet light. Because what you did yesterday confuses my people, she said. You bowed without fear. You braved the storm without promise of reward. And now you stand here with no claim to make. Ethan shifted his weight, not used to being examined so closely. I did what seemed right, he said. That is all. Noreen stepped closer, her voice lowering. Among the Valir, actions like that are rare. We honor those who place others above themselves. Even when they misunderstand your gesture, they recognize its shape. Ethan exhaled slowly, the truth settling into him. I never meant to start anything, he said. I just meant to show respect. Noreen held his eyes, steady and clear. That is exactly why it matters. The wind softened. The stones glowed. And for the first time, it felt as though the valley itself was listening to them both. The wind shifted gently across the plateau, carrying with it the soft chime of distant crystals as Ethan stood inside the circle of glowing stones. The calm felt unreal after the storm, like the valley itself was holding its breath. Noreen watched him with the same quiet intensity she had shown since the ridge, but something in her expression had softened, as if a thread of understanding had begun to pull through her thoughts. She stepped past him, brushing her fingertips along one of the stones. The blue core pulsed once beneath her touch, responding to her presence. My people believe the stones echo intention, she said, her voice steady. They respond to honesty, to purpose, to courage expressed without expectation. Ethan looked down at the faint shimmer beneath his own boots. Do they respond to humans? Noreen hesitated, as though weighing the truth. I do not know, she admitted. They have never been asked to. Ethan let out a small breath that fogged in the cool air. Well, I guess we are about to find out. He moved closer to one of the stones and rested his palm against its surface. The The stone felt cool at first, almost silky, and then gradually warmer. It hummed faintly under his skin, and though he could not tell if anything had truly changed, Narine's eyes widened just slightly. "It hears you," she whispered. Her voice carried something like wonder. "Not fully, not deeply, but it hears you." Before Ethan could respond, the sky shifted. A line of sunlight broke through the thinning clouds, spilling gold across the plateau. The glow caught in the strands of Narine's pale hair and lit the stones in soft halos. Ethan turned toward the view, the valley stretching out beneath them like a vast open hand. "It is beautiful," he said. Narine nodded slowly. "It is home." For a moment, the quiet settled again, comfortable and unforced. Then she stepped back from the circle and motioned for him to follow. "There is another place I must show you," she said. "It may help you understand why your actions have unsettled the camp." They descended a gentle slope carved into the rock. The stone was smooth beneath their feet, worn down by time and weather. Ethan noticed more symbols etched into the walls, glowing faintly, as though charged by sunlight. "These are the stories of the Valir," Narine explained as they walked. "The moments when purpose guided our people. We record them so that each generation remembers what matters most." Ethan slowed to study one of the carvings. It showed a Valir figure leaning forward, hands open, offering something to a smaller figure. "What is this one?" he asked. Narine paused, tracing the lines with her eyes. "It tells of a Valir who carried a stranger through a dust storm," she said. "Because the stranger could not walk. No one commanded the act. It was done because it was right." Ethan looked at her. "You honor that." "We honor intention," she replied. "Not status. Not strength. Not lineage." She met his gaze. "You remind some of that story." Ethan blinked. "Me? You protected me from the falling ridge yesterday," she said simply. "You did not think I saw, but I did." Ethan felt a flush warm the back of his neck. Anyone would have done the same. Narine shook her head gently. "No, not anyone." They continued down the path until the walls opened into a sheltered alcove overlooking the valley. Sunlight spread across the rocks in long, soft beams. Narine stood at the edge, her silhouette framed by the sky. "My people misunderstand your bow," she said. "They believed you were offering yourself to us. But what they saw did not match what they felt." Ethan stepped beside her, the wind brushing lightly against his face. "What did they feel?" Narine turned toward him, her voice quiet but certain. "That you bowed not because you were beneath us," she said, "but because you were choosing respect." She let the silence settle between them before adding, "And my people do not know how to answer a gesture like that." Ethan looked out over the valley, the stones glowing softly in the morning light. "Maybe they do not have to answer yet," he said. "Sometimes understanding takes time." Narine considered that, her expression thoughtful, and for the first time since he arrived, the valley around them felt less like a guarded world and more like a place that had begun to shift, just enough to let a stranger stand inside it. The sun climbed higher over the valley, casting long soft beams across the stone alcove where Ethan and Narine stood. The quiet around them felt deeper than before, as if even the wind paused to listen. Ethan adjusted the strap of his pack, feeling the familiar weight of the beacon against his side. Its silent presence reminded him there was still work to do, still questions unanswered about who had sent it. Narine seemed to sense his shifting thoughts. "Your mind returns to the signal," she said. Ethan nodded. "Someone triggered it. Someone might still need help. I cannot ignore that." Narine's gaze drifted across the valley. The storm last night was strong enough to scatter travelers. If someone was caught in it, they may have sought shelter in one of the outer caves. Ethan followed her line of sight. The valley stretched out, in layered shelves, each one carved by wind and lightning over centuries. "Are the caves far?" he asked. "Not far," Narine replied. "But they are hidden. Only those who know the valley can find them." There was no hesitation in her voice when she added, "I will guide you." As they descended from the alcove, the warmth of the sun brushed their shoulders. The air held a faint sparkle from residual static released by the storm. Ethan stepped carefully along the winding path, noting how the stone glowed faintly beneath certain patches of sunlight. "Does the valley always shine like this after a storm?" he asked. "Only when the storm is strong enough to stir the minerals," Narine replied. "The light is a sign that the valley is breathing again." Her explanation carried a reverence that made Ethan see the landscape differently, not as terrain to cross, but as a living presence. As they approached the base of a tall rock formation, Noreen paused and placed her palm on the stone. A faint blue pattern shimmered under her touch, spreading into gentle lines. "This is a marker," she said. "An old one. It guides those who listen." Ethan watched the glow fade, the pattern dissolving into the stone's natural texture. "How do you know which way to go?" She stepped back and pointed toward a narrow crevice partly hidden by overhanging rock. "The storm echoes change. They lead us to places where the wind last moved." Ethan followed her into the crevice, the air cooling as the space narrowed. The sound of distant dripping echoed through the passage. When they emerged on the other side, a small clearing opened before them, framed by curved stone walls. Crystal fragments glittered along the ground like scattered glass. A faint imprint disturbed the dust near the center. Noreen knelt beside it, her fingers hovering above the ground. "Someone was here recently," she murmured. "This shape is not Valir." Ethan crouched next to her. The imprint was shallow, possibly from a boot or a piece of equipment he did not recognize. "It is human," he said quietly. Noreen looked up at him, her expression shifting with realization. "Then your traveler passed through this place. They may still be in the valley." Ethan felt his pulse quicken. "Then we have to keep searching." Noreen rose smoothly, her silhouette framed by the soft glow of the rocks around them. "We will," she said. "But understand this." Her voice softened. "If your traveler saw you with us, they may not understand what your bow meant. They may misread it as we did." Ethan exhaled slowly, the truth settling into him. Misunderstandings seemed to be a theme today. Noreen offered the faintest smile. "Perhaps, but understanding begins exactly like this." The light shifted again, brushing the stones in a warm glow that felt almost like a sign. And together, they stepped deeper into the valley's quiet. The deeper they moved into the valley, the quieter the world became, as if every sound was being absorbed by the stone itself. Ethan felt the temperature drop slightly, the air turning crisp with the lingering trace of last night's storm. Noreen walked ahead, her steps precise, almost instinctive, following pathways that were invisible to him. The rock walls narrowed again, then opened into a sheltered corridor of smooth stone. Sunlight filtered in through narrow cracks, casting thin beams across the ground like lines drawn by an unseen hand. Ethan paused to study another faint footprint in the dust. "Your traveler was moving fast," Noreen observed. "The stride is long." Ethan nodded. "If they panicked during the storm, they might have rushed without thinking." Noreen touched the edge of the footprint, her expression thoughtful. "Fear shapes movement," she said. "Purpose shapes direction." He glanced at her. "Which one do you think this is?" She looked ahead. "We will know soon." They continued forward until the path curved around a tall formation of stone. A soft glow flickered at the far end, reflecting off the walls in faint blue ripples. Noreen raised her hand, signaling Ethan to slow. "The valley is changing," she whispered. "Do you feel it?" Ethan listened, letting the silence settle against his ears. There was a subtle hum in the stone, a vibration that felt almost like a heartbeat beneath the surface. "Yes," he said quietly. "What does it mean?" "It means we are close to a place the storm has touched deeply," Noreen replied. "Places like that can hide those who seek shelter." As they rounded the bend, a wide cavern opened before them. Crystal pillars rose from the ground like frozen lightning, each one shimmering with shifting colors. The air inside the cavern was warmer, with a faint scent of mineral springs. Ethan scanned the space carefully. If someone came through here, they could have stayed to rest. Noreen stepped beside him, studying the ground. "There are disturbances in the dust," she noted. "Small ones. Careful steps." Ethan followed her gaze and saw a set of faint impressions leading deeper into the cavern. Before he could take a step, a sudden soft chime echoed through the air. Noreen's posture stiffened slightly. "That sound," she said. "It is a signal from the valley itself. It reacts when a stranger leaves behind something with energy." Ethan's pulse quickened. "So the traveler dropped something?" "Perhaps," Noreen said. She guided him toward a narrow ledge where the sound had originated. Resting near the base of a crystal pillar was a small metal object, half buried in dust. Ethan crouched and brushed it clean, revealing a compact navigation beacon, smaller than the one he carried. His breath caught. "This is not mine," he said. But it is human. Noreen studied it with quiet focus. Then your traveler was not only here, she said. They wanted to be found. Ethan held the device in his hands, the weight of it settling through him like a quiet revelation. Someone had survived the storm. Someone had trusted that help would come. Noreen stepped closer, her voice low but steady. Your purpose meets theirs, she said. The valley brings paths together for a reason. Ethan stood slowly, the beacon reflecting a soft shimmer of blue light onto his palm. If they are still alive, he said, we cannot waste any time. Noreen nodded. Then we continue. The next place the valley guides us will tell us more. Ethan took one last look at the echoing cavern, the crystal pillars humming softly, and felt something shift inside himself. Not fear, not urgency, something steadier, like a promise forming its shape. And together, they stepped back into the narrowing passage, following the valley's quiet pulse. The cavern's glow faded behind them as Ethan and Noreen followed the narrow passage that curved deeper into the valley. The air grew cooler again, carrying a faint metallic scent, as though the storm had left traces of itself embedded in every surface. Ethan held the small navigation beacon carefully, feeling its smooth edges and wondering how long it had been lying there. It was clearly human, clearly a call for help, and clearly recent. Noreen moved with purpose, her pace quickening slightly. As the passage opened into a wider stretch of land, shaped by centuries of wind. Above them, the sky brightened with soft streaks of gold as the sun climbed higher. She paused at a split in the path, placing her hand lightly against the stone. The wall shimmered faintly under her touch. The valley's echoes are stronger here, she said. Whatever happened last night left a trail. Ethan listened, trying to detect the subtle hum she seemed to hear. The stone felt still beneath his palm, but then a faint vibration passed through it, like the echo of a distant heartbeat. You read the valley like a living map, he said quietly. Noreen lowered her hand. We learn to feel what moves through it. Storms carry intention. Travelers leave traces. Even fear leaves a shape. Ethan considered that as they turned left, moving along a sloping incline that led toward a cluster of tall rock spires. The ground showed faint disturbances again, but more scattered this time, as if the traveler had hesitated or changed direction. Noreen crouched to examine a small scuff in the dust. Their steps slowed here, she noted. Perhaps they were searching for a safe place. Ethan scanned the surroundings. If they were injured, they might have rested against the rocks. Noreen nodded, her expression turning thoughtful. Or they might have seen us. Ethan looked at her with a hint of surprise. You think they were avoiding us? If they misunderstood your gesture as we did, she said softly, they might believe the Valier were guiding a prisoner. Ethan let that sink in, feeling a quiet ripple of irony. Then we have more than one misunderstanding to solve. They continued forward until the spires opened into a sheltered clearing. A faint shimmer hung in the air, like heat rising from pavement on a summer day. Ethan stepped closer and noticed a thin line of fabric snagged on a crystal-bladed plant. He lifted it gently, the cloth trembling in the breeze. It was part of a human jacket, torn by the storm. They were here, he said, his voice tightening. And they left in a hurry. Noreen examined the fabric with focused eyes. This color, she murmured. The same color the valley reflected earlier. Ethan fished the navigation beacon from his pocket. The light on the device flickered once, as though responding to something. It is picking up residual energy, he said. There is a chance the traveler tried to activate it again. Noreen looked toward the far edge of the clearing where the ground dipped into another narrow corridor. The path ahead leads to the sunken terraces, she said. A place where the valley's sound is different. If your traveler entered it, we will hear something. Ethan followed her gaze. The terraces stretched out like layered steps carved by lightning, shimmering with soft blue mineral light. Something about the place felt quiet but not empty. As they approached the first terrace, a faint sound drifted toward them, carried by the wind. It was not the chime of stone, not the echo of their footsteps, but something softer, fragile, almost like a breath. Noreen froze. That, she whispered, is not the valley. Ethan felt his heartbeat jump. Then someone is here. They exchanged a look, not of fear but shared purpose, and moved together toward the sound, letting the valley's silence guide them closer. The sound grew clearer as Ethan and Noreen stepped onto the first sunken terrace. It was soft, unsteady, almost like someone drawing a thin breath after holding it for too long. The terraces curved in layered arcs, each one glowing faintly beneath the filtered sunlight. Ethan scanned the lower levels, and then he saw a slight movement near the base of a crystal outcrop. A person sat there, wrapped in a thin emergency blanket, head bowed, shoulders trembling with exhaustion. The figure looked small against the vast stone walls, like a single fragile note inside an enormous quiet. Ethan felt something settle in his chest. "That has to be them," he murmured. Noreen gave a short nod, her expression shifting into something focused yet gentle. "Move slowly. A frightened traveler may mistake our approach." They descended the terraces carefully, each step sending soft echoes across the valley's still air. When they reached the lowest level, Ethan knelt a few feet away from the traveler. The figure lifted their head, revealing a young human technician, face streaked with dust and worry. Their eyes widened the moment they saw Noreen. Ethan raised his hands calmly. "It is all right," he said. "You are safe. We came because of your beacon." The technician's voice shook. I thought I saw you being taken. I thought the Valir captured you." Ethan offered a steady smile. "There was a misunderstanding, but everything is fine now." The technician looked between Ethan and Noreen, confusion giving way to relief. "The storm hit so fast," they whispered. "I lost my rover. I tried to follow the ridge, but I slipped down here. I activated the beacon before the battery died." Ethan extended a supportive hand. "You did the right thing. We will get you home." Noreen studied the technician silently for a moment, her gaze softening with understanding. "You showed courage to survive the night," she said. "The valley does not show mercy easily." The technician blinked, not expecting praise from someone who looked so imposing moments ago. Ethan helped them stand, steadying their weight. The moment the technician found their balance, a distant shift of wind rolled over the terraces, carrying a low hum that rippled through the stone. Noreen turned her head slightly. "The valley acknowledges your path," she said softly. "It is time to return." When they climbed back toward the higher terraces, the sun was beginning to shift toward the horizon, bathing the valley in a warm amber glow. The technician clung to the emergency blanket as Ethan walked beside them. Noreen led the way, her silhouette framed by the sinking light. As they approached the upper ridge, a quiet murmur drifted through the air. Ethan slowed, recognizing the sound before he saw the source. At the crest of the ridge, dozens of Valir stood waiting. Their blue skin glowed under the evening light, their woven garments catching the wind like fluid silver. Ethan hesitated, unsure of how they would react to a second human in their valley. Noreen looked back at him with a small, steady nod, as if to reassure him he no longer walked here alone. When they stepped into full view, the murmuring ceased. The Valir elders moved forward, their expressions unreadable yet calm. The elder with sea glass skin regarded Ethan, then the rescued traveler, then Noreen. Without a word, she placed her hand over her heart and bowed. And then the entire valley bowed with her. Ethan stood frozen, breath caught in his chest. He had bowed to them first out of respect, and they had misunderstood. Now they bowed back with understanding, a gesture returned not out of obligation but out of choice. The wind carried a soft hush across the ridge as Noreen stepped beside him, her voice low and steady. "They bow to those who carry purpose greater than themselves," she said. "Today, the valley saw yours." Ethan looked out over the sea of lowered heads, the traveler leaning weakly against him, the sun casting long shadows across the stone. For the first time since he arrived, he felt the valley breathe with him. No words were needed. The silence was enough.